My wife accused me of cheating on her. Then she got upset when she realized I didn't, and she beat me, breaking my nose. I took our daughter from her, and my wife ended up crashing her car into a tree at 100 miles per hour. I, 31 male, and my wife, 29 female, had a baby last December. It was a traumatic birth, and my wife developed postpartum depression. While she was originally going to go back to work after the birth, she's been struggling enough that we decided to wait until our daughter was a year old and reassess. She's been going to therapy weekly. With my wife home full-time, I've had to work increased hours. This is something we discussed prior to making this decision, and she knew this from the start. A few weeks ago, my boss approached me about a project that would require a lot of overtime in a short amount of time. It would both be great financially and for my career. I talked to my wife about it, and she agreed that I should say yes to my boss. For the 4 weeks I'd be working on this, my mother-in-law and her best friend Jessie, 29 female, name changed, would come help out with some of the duties that I typically do. Jessie is a stay-at-home mom with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She began coming over during the day and would watch the kids with my wife. 3 weeks into the project, it became clear that we need a few more weeks to get it together. I went home that night and talked to my wife about it. She said she was okay with it, but got very cold in the days after. It wasn't unusual behavior over the past few months, so I didn't think much about it and tried not to take it personally. During the last week of the project, I got home one night and saw that Jessie was still at the house. I didn't think much about it, said hi to her and my wife, and then went to go check on our daughter. Before I could go to her room, I heard Jessie say something along the lines of, "He doesn't even stop to greet you. Definitely a sign." I turned around and asked what it was a sign of. Immediately, my wife starts crying and Jessie started accusing me of having an affair. She told me that I must hate my wife because she has PPD and am not attracted to her because she gained weight from the pregnancy. Neither of these things are true. I'm trying my best to help my wife through her PPD while supporting our family, and I think she looks great how she is right now. She just hasn't wanted to have intimacy, and I haven't pushed. Jessie then demanded to see my phone. I told her no. She told me that's a sign that I'm guilty. I told my wife that I would let her see my phone if she wanted to. She nodded, and something inside me broke. I guess it was the thought that she actually believed I was having an affair really got to me, and that she didn't trust me after everything we've been through. Well, she looked through the phone, and there was no evidence. Jessie started saying that I deleted the evidence. She started screaming and woke up our daughter, so I told her to get out of the house. Eventually, she left, and I went to calm our daughter since my wife was still on the couch crying. When my daughter was asleep again, I sat down with my wife and tried to talk to her about what's been happening. She told me that she's been worried ever since I started working all the overtime. I told her that we'd talked about how good of an opportunity it was, and she agreed to letting me take on this project. She said it was very suspicious to increase the length of the project. I told her that sometimes that happens. She wanted more evidence. So I showed her messages and emails with timestamps from work and pay stubs showing the overtime. She said she believed me and was sorry for doubting me. It was just that Jessie had been telling her that these were all the signs that I was cheating. I asked her why she believed Jessie more than me and why she didn't come to me with her concerns. She didn't have a real answer. It's been a couple weeks and the project is over. I actually scaled back and am trying to work a little less than I was before the project so I can spend more time with my wife and daughter. But I feel so burned out trying to do everything and becoming resentful because in the back of my mind, I know that my wife doesn't trust me. I ask myself, what happens the next time I have a project? Or I have to run errands one day? Or if I have a business trip? Am I going to come back every time to accusations that I'm cheating? I've tried bringing it up a couple times, but my wife tells me it's not the time and that she's tired or sad. I try to be mindful of her feelings, but I wonder if that means that I can never have any of my own. I'm not sure what to do here. Any advice for how I can move forward? Update. Thank you to everyone for all the advice and support of my previous post. I think a lot of you pointed out what should have been obvious, that I need to get a therapist and start looking after my own mental health. A couple people asked for an update, so I'm giving one, but it's not happy. That night, I approached my wife and told her that I was going to find a therapist. I didn't connect it to her accusations or anything. Just said that I was having a tough time and needed therapy. She shrugged and told me to do whatever. Next day, I got home from work, and our room and my home office were ripped apart. Things everywhere. Important papers scattered. I don't see her, but our daughter is in her room crying. My wife left her alone. Her cell phone's off. I call my in-laws and a few friends, but no one's seen her. I'm starting to get worried, and I call my mom to see if she can babysit while I go out and look for her. Before my mom can get home, my wife gets back. Jesse's driving. Jessie doesn't come in. She hasn't been back in the house since I kicked her out because she was offended by my behavior. But my wife does. She's clearly upset, been crying. I ask what happened. I thought at first the house might have been robbed. She starts screaming at me that I'm being unfaithful and that the therapy is a front so I can meet my mistress. I try to calm her down and tell her that's not true, but she came at me and she hit me, breaking my nose. She kind of realized what she did and sat down on the couch and went comatose, just stared at the wall. I went into my daughter's room and locked the door, called my mom to tell her what happened, she was already on her way, and my mother-in-law to ask her to come over and take care of my wife. I packed a bag for my daughter, and when my mom got there, we left. My wife didn't even look up. We dropped my daughter off with my dad and then went to urgent care for my nose. I got blood all over my mom's new Subaru. My daughter and I are staying with my parents for a while, and my wife's staying with hers. I'm looking into getting a restraining order against Jessie. My wife and I are separating. I love her, but I won't live with someone who hurts me and who could potentially hurt our daughter. I'm not going forward with a divorce yet, with the hopes that my wife will get the treatment she needs and we can work things out. My in-laws told me that they're looking at inpatient treatment at a local hospital, but I also have everything well documented in case of an eventual custody battle. My heart's broken because I know this isn't my wife. This is a sickness in her mind. But I need to keep myself and our daughter safe and give her the space to recover. I'm hoping that this is the right decision. Thanks again, everyone. Edit. Thank you for all the feedback. I've talked to my parents after reading your comments and came to the conclusion that for my daughter's protection, I need to file a police report. I'm headed to the station now. Do I let the woman I fault with my wife's passing let her speak at her funeral? Too long didn't read? A woman fed lies to my wife suffering from postpartum depression that led to a mental breakdown and her passing. She now wants to speak at my wife's funeral. Denying her would start trouble, which I'm not sure would be worth it. There's more context for this situation in my post history. My wife passed on early Monday morning. Convinced by her friend Jessie that I was having an affair that I did not have, she had a mental break, which resulted in my taking our infant daughter and staying with my parents for a while. She was with her parents, who planned on taking her to the hospital for inpatient treatment on Monday. On Sunday night, she came to my parents' house and demanded I give her our daughter. Because she had left her alone for several hours the last time she was responsible for her and had gotten physical with me, I refused. I offered to let her come in and spend time with her while my parents and I were present, but she didn't want to come in and wanted to take our daughter with her. She was upset but left eventually. A few hours later, she drove her parents' car into a tree and perished. The friend, Jessie, came to see my daughter and me yesterday. After some tears, she told me that she was planning to speak at my wife's funeral. She had already cleared it with my in-laws, but was letting me know as a courtesy. I told her she would not be speaking at the funeral. We fought, and she left me after telling me that I was an a-hole and not the only person who loved my wife. I talked to my in-laws, who are adamant that Jessie be allowed to speak. She and my wife have known each other since they were kids, and my in-laws are close to her. We're all very fragile right now, and I fear that pushing this further would hurt my relationship with my in-laws, which I don't want. Still, the thought of seeing Jessie up there at my wife's funeral makes me feel sick. I don't think I can stand to listen to her, knowing that she took joy in my wife's deteriorating mental health and picked up my wife, leaving my daughter home alone. That being said, I don't trust myself to make the best decisions right now. My mind's clouded by grief, guilt, and fear. My parents are split on what to do, and I don't have the energy to reach out to my friends. Thank you. I just found out that at least 4 of my 5 children are not mine. Wife won't say anything. Background. I met my wife when we were in high school and we married in college. We have 5 beautiful children together. Really, I consider them a total blessing regardless of what I'm about to bring up. And up until a couple of weeks ago, I thought that we had the perfect marriage. We were typical high school sweethearts. We go out together, we never fight. I feel like I've done everything a loving husband should do. I'm saying this not to make myself out as the perfect husband. For example, my work has always meant I work long hours and maybe haven't always been there when she needed me. But I want to stress that I've never felt our marriage was in any trouble. And never in a million years would I ever have suspected my wife of being disloyal. She's always done everything she could to support me and take care of our children. Now, my eldest daughter recently had an ancestry test done, and the result of the ancestry test strongly suggested I was not her father. She confided this to me privately, showing me the results, and I could tell she was visibly upset by this. Of course, the first thing I did was reassure her that no matter what, she's my daughter and I'll always love her unconditionally. But secondly, the two of us decided to get an official paternity test since the ancestry tests are not completely reliable. It comes back, and I am indeed not the biological father. This news really broke me. I'm ashamed to say I broke down in tears in front of my daughter. The combination of finding out my wife's infidelity and how upset I was making my daughter by how I was reacting. I really wish I had kept it in for her sake, but I didn't. Following this, I asked my other children, except my youngest, to come and see me. I wanted to know the extent of my wife's infidelity. If it was a one-off, I could maybe work past it, especially given how long ago it would be. However, I didn't want to tell my youngest as she's still in school, a teenager. And really, I didn't think it was appropriate to tell her yet. We tell the other three what has happened. I reassure them that I love them unconditionally and that I'll always be their dad, but that I need to know how long this has been going on. I can't begin to explain how touching their reaction was. They didn't care that I wasn't their biological father. They were just upset at how heartbroken I was. I feel like the only thing that has kept me going these last couple of weeks is their unwavering support. So we have paternity tests for each of the three done. Not only are none of them my biological children, together, 4 of my children have 3 different fathers, which somehow made it worse. It's like she wasn't just having an ongoing affair, she was having multiple? I can't explain how this makes it worse, but it just does. So I confront my wife with this, expecting her to confess and beg for forgiveness. She doesn't confess. She doesn't even take it seriously. She says the tests must be flawed. All 4? How the hell am I supposed to take that seriously? I keep bringing it up and she keeps brushing it off, getting progressively more annoyed at me. When I bring it up, she'll try and guilt trip me. We've been together since high school. Do you seriously not trust me? Etc. But how am I supposed to trust her in the face of such overwhelming evidence? Now that I've rambled and explained what's happened, I guess let me ask a few direct questions for advice. How can I reassure my children this doesn't change anything between us? I feel like the way I've reacted, total breakdowns, has made them second-guess this, despite however many times I reassure them. How do I handle my youngest daughter? I feel like our marriage is beyond saving, and I'll need to tell my daughter something. I don't want her to know the truth until she's older, but I also don't want my wife lying and making me out to be the villain. Is there any way at all you think I could or should save my marriage? I've been with my wife my entire life. It's almost impossible to see a life without her. I know that the answer should be a clear-cut leave her, but we have 5 kids together. If there's anything that can be done to save our marriage, I want to consider it seriously. Edit. I guess I should clarify some things that people have been asking. How did the ancestry results suggest I wasn't her father? My family is entirely Irish. No relatives outside of Ireland other than my immediate family. And I even have the stereotypical red hair. My daughter's ancestry results showed nothing from the British Isles, Western Europe, or Northern Europe. That's what set off alarm bells. But it's by no means conclusive, hence the paternity tests. Which 2 children share the same father? My 2 eldest daughters share the same father. How did your wife conceive your children? Our eldest daughter was not planned. All the others were planned. Each time we conceived several months after we started trying. Our first 3 planned children were both our ideas, while she pressured me into having our youngest. She was in her late 30s and wanted one last child before it was too late, and eventually I agreed. She was conceived several months after we started trying too. Are you infertile? I don't know. I've never had a fertility test done, but the fact that none of our planned children are mine makes me think that it might be. I will have a fertility test as soon as possible. Update. I've been debating whether or not to post an update because nothing was ever resolved. I decided I would post it here in case anyone is still waiting for one. I apologize for not updating earlier when I promised I would. My kids and I confronted their mother shortly after making that post. It really didn't go well. I think the prospect that no one believed her finally hit home because she completely broke down and apologized profusely, but refused to explain herself or anything that would give myself peace of mind. For the next few weeks, we barely said a word to each other. I was hoping she was thinking it over, and I expected her to eventually sit me down and explain herself. I figured she was so far deep in a lie that it got out of control. She needed time to think things over. Nope. I came home one evening to find she had committed self-unaliving by overdosing. So I lost the love of my life, and I'll never know what mistake she had made. I really wish I could go back in time and forget about it all. Whatever mistake she made, I honestly wanted to work through it, and now I'm just riddled with guilt that I pressed her for an answer. The worst part of this entire ordeal was watching my kids work so hard to keep me together after having lost their mother. Anyway, please tell your family you love them while you have the chance.